Hi, welcome to anyone that is tuning in to see the Renny Show. My wonderful and illustrious partner, Jenny, appears to be missing in action. So I'm going to just go with it, go live anyway, see what happens. Hopefully she'll be able to join us, but she's indisposed at the moment. So for now, you've got me for your fortnightly dose of positivity and honesty in the Renny Show. If you're watching, do pop me a comment so I can see you there. I'd love to say hi personally. And if you're watching on replay, pop us a hashtag replay, and any comments you might have, we'd love to keep the conversation going afterwards as well. So the theme for today is anxiety. And the fact it's Mental Health Awareness Week. As you're probably all aware, there are various awareness weeks and months throughout the year. And I suppose the key message I want to say first is that Mental Health Awareness Week is not and should not be the only time that we talk about mental health. But it is a good opportunity to spark up conversations where there aren't those conversations. So if you can see a situation where conversations around mental health would be positive, then do try and get those conversations going. I think sadly there are some people who still feel that their mental health is a taboo subject to talk about, and they shy away from it and keep it very secret to themselves. And that's not really a good thing, which is something I'm going to touch on today. So obviously, without my illustrious partner, it's not going to be quite the same format today. So I'm just going to talk to you about mental health and perhaps give you some tips. Obviously, if you've got any questions, do feel free to ask them and I will do my best to answer. But I'm just going to take this opportunity to help raise and spread awareness about mental health. I had a very interesting conversation with someone last week. I believe it was Neil Jones at the big business event I was exhibiting at. And he actually referred to it as mental fitness. And I think that's a really, really good way of looking at it, because, we're all aware of what physical fitness means, what it is to be fit, the things that we can do to help our physical fitness. And I like the idea of looking at it in the same way in terms of our mental fitness as well. There are definitely lots of things we can all do to promote mental health and mental fitness in both ourselves and in others. Interestingly, the Mental Health Foundation, which is a great website, by the way, in fact, I'm going to pop the website up. I thought I'd put it in here somewhere. Where is it? When I can work out how to do it, I will pop it up in the comments. But it's a really good website for information and resources in terms of mental health generally at any time. And the reason I'm talking about anxiety specifically today is because that is their theme for this year's Mental Health Awareness Week. So the Mental Health Foundation did some research in March of this year, and they surveyed, I think, about 6,000 people, and nearly 3/4 of those 6,000 people, so 73%, had felt anxious at least sometimes in the previous 2 weeks, with 20% anxious most or all of the time. Now, those aren't great statistics in terms of the amount of people that are experiencing anxiety, but hopefully that does go some way to show you that anxiety is very normal. It doesn't mean that you're crazy if you're experiencing anxiety. It's a very, very normal thing to experience. You could term it as a feeling of unease, worry, fear that can be mild or severe. So for many of us, it might be on the more mild end of the spectrum, but for some people, it can be really severe. And when you're feeling that fear, the body can't tell the difference. Your fight or flight and the stress hormones that start coursing around your body can't tell the difference between fear from being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger and fear of not being able to pay your bills this month. The cost of living crisis being a huge one at the moment for many people that's causing stress and anxiety. So it's important to acknowledge that stress and anxiety is normal. It's widespread. Everyone has it at some time or another, and it can be really mild right the way through to really severe. And clearly, when you're experiencing anxiety, it's a really positive thing to be able to do something about it. So there are a number of things you can do to help yourself when it comes to anxiety. And I think anxiety is one of many topics where it's really important to say that, you know, fitting your oxygen mask first is really important, then enabling you to fit the oxygen mask of others that depend on you. So looking after yourself first is really, really important in terms of anxiety. You know, if you often put yourself at the bottom of the pile in terms of priorities, then really consider that maybe you should move yourself up that pecking order, because if you don't look after you, how can you be expected to look after others around you? So there are a number of things that can be really helpful in terms of anxiety. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to make it go away or cure it. It's more about trying to deal with the anxiety, accepting that whilst it in itself, it might appear to be a negative thing. If it is part of the way you operate and it's a regular thing in your life, acknowledging that is fine, it's normal, but there are things that you can do about it. So the first thing I want to talk about is connection. Human beings are naturally pack animals, and we do crave the attention of connection with other people. Now, since the pandemic, there's been a lot of our communication that has changed. A lot of communication, or connection, should I say, now happens online, and that's wonderful. It's connected us with parts of the country, parts of the world that we weren't able to connect with before in the same way. Speaking for me personally as a coach, I'd never coached someone anything other than face-to-face prior to the pandemic. Now I've coached people all across the country online, and even in New Zealand. So, you know, that online world does open up a huge host of possibilities of connection. But you have to remember that connection isn't the same as eyeballing someone face to face, actually being in the same room, feeling a rapport with someone, feeling that connection, whether it's in a physical sense or a mental sense, you know, being able to hug someone. I'm a huge hugger. If anyone that knows me will know that's the case. And that physical connection, you just obviously can't get that online. So whilst the online world is a great place to connect, it can be really easy to, you know, it's a superficial connection perhaps. So my plea, I suppose, to everyone is to look for those deeper, more meaningful connections that happen with face-to-face, you know, real conversations, and ideally, you know, face-to-face engagements with people, friends, colleagues, clubs, sports interests, hobbies, all those things. But connection is a really, really good and positive way to help to lessen the feelings of anxiety and stress that you might be experiencing. Another really good one is exercise. Now, this isn't for everyone, and it's true to say that you can not do enough exercise. It's just as true to say that you can do too much exercise. So it's finding what works for you. You might be someone that goes to the gym regularly. You might be someone that goes running or cycling, maybe even roller skating. But equally, you might be someone that's more well suited to walking. Doesn't really matter what the exercise is, but that regular movement of your body, getting the systems actually working, getting your heart pumping and your blood really moving around the system, and getting out there and doing something that will release endorphins, you know, those happy hormones that just increase your mood, lift your mood, which is particularly useful if you're feeling anxious. Now, I appreciate sometimes when you're feeling anxious, it's not always easy to want to do those things. But when you know the truth that it's really positive to do so, hopefully that's enough of a little nudge to say, you know, I might find this difficult, but I'm going to give it a go and just see how it goes. When you go out for a walk, it's wonderful to be able to actually pay attention to the world around you. It's too easy to just miss all those wonderful things that we see in the scenery around us. If you're out for a walk or a run, take the time to notice the nature that's around you, the colours of the leaves, the smells that are in the air, all sorts of things. Those kind of mindful practices can really help you to stay in the moment that you're in, rather than worrying excessively about the past or worrying excessively about the future. Another thing that's really important in terms of helping anxiety is sleep. That's when your body does all of its recovery. So it's a really, really important time to help your body and your mind to recover from the different things that you've been getting up to in your daily life. I think, sleep, we're all told, yeah, I need 8 hours a night. It will be different for everyone. There is perhaps an optimum for individuals, and that can change as you age. Sometimes you perhaps don't sleep quite as well. But again, that's all linked to the way you live your life, the nutrition that you're getting from your diet, not filling your body full of all the rubbish, which, let's face it, we'll do sometimes. All these things can really help your sleep to be better. It's all about the cycles of sleep that you're getting. It's not necessarily about the length of the time that you sleep. It's about the sleep cycles that your body goes through, so that you can have that time to repair all that's gone on in your body that previous day. Another thing that I find really helpful in times of anxiety is gratitudes. Now, again, that's something that most of you have heard me talk about many times. But when you start doing gratitudes on a regular basis, thinking about the things that you're really grateful for, things that you appreciate in your life, it then becomes easier to remember those things in the moments where you're perhaps having a downtime, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed. Remembering in those moments that, once it's become a regular practice and a habit, it's easier in those down moments to remember those things that you're grateful for, and to think, well, yes, the situation I'm in right now doesn't feel great. However, I have X, Y, and Z to be grateful for. I would thoroughly recommend anyone gives a try of doing this. Perhaps first thing in the morning can be a good time. Start with think of 3 things that you're really grateful for. It can be dead simple. It can be that the sun's shining today, except it's not here, that you've got a nice warm bed, and that there was some breakfast on the table. Brilliant. But when you start doing it on a regular basis, it's much easier to go a bit deeper with it and really think of things that you're grateful for, and why, and all the different reasons why you can be grateful for those things that you life. Something else when you're dealing with anxiety, positive thinking. Now, I'm not talking here about just being positive for the sake of it and lying to yourself. If you're in a negative situation, you have to be honest. You have to acknowledge the things that are going on in that situation. But, that phrase, there's always a silver lining. There's always something to be grateful for. There's always something that you can look at to see, okay, how can I flip this situation? I love the way Taz Thornton puts it. It's about flipping your negatives, having a different thought process, proactively changing your thought process to not be negative. Us human beings can have a propensity for negative thought, and that can lead to a bit of a spiral, particularly if you're experiencing quite severe anxiety. So just try and do what you can to flip those negatives. Think about the language that you're using in your negative self-talk, and see if there's something you can do to flip that to make it more positive. Another thing you can try, talking therapies. There are many, many talking therapies available that can help you with anxiety, help you to understand why you're experiencing that anxiety, and help you with tools to lessen that anxiety. Coaching, you wouldn't necessarily say directly is a talking therapy. However, it very much does have a therapeutic effect. So, talk to your coach, talk to your trusted friends and colleagues. This does come back to the whole connection thing. When you can talk about what's going on for you, it can have a real positive impact, because it can help you to realize, you can feel quite alone when you're anxious. Talking to someone really does help to remind you that you're not alone. You're not the only person experiencing this. If I take you back to the stats I mentioned from the Mental Health Foundation at the beginning, 73% of the 6,000 people surveyed said they had experienced anxiety sometime in the previous 2 weeks. So it is common. You are definitely not alone. And the last thing I just want to touch on that you can try is journaling. Getting those thoughts out of your head and onto paper can be really useful. Our short-term memories, our brains are not designed to hold lots and lots and lots of information in that short-term memory. So sometimes getting all the information out of your head, do a brain dump onto paper, can just help you to organize those thoughts and maybe make things just a little less overwhelming than they might have felt before. I will also mention that there are potentially some things that are good to avoid if you're experiencing anxiety. For example, alcohol, drugs of any kind, food, overeating. These are all things that can become a crutch, and you lean on them too heavily because they make you feel slightly better. We all know how great it feels when you've eaten a donut because it tastes good. But it doesn't mean that getting lost in that is a good idea for anxiety. Far from it. It's the opposite. So try not to lose yourself in those things if you can. I would also say be very careful with social media and the news. That can also, people refer to, doom scrolling on the various social media apps. If you can avoid doing that, or maybe try and proactively do a bit less of that, that can also help to reduce anxiety, because we're very quick to read all these negative stories and respond to the negative things that we're seeing in the press and on social media, and that's definitely not helpful to anybody. I, for one, don't particularly watch the news very much ever since the pandemic started, because I just found it so negative and it really impacted my mindset. So I watch the news, or I choose when to get news now, and I don't just sit there and live the negativity all the time. So that's all I've got for you today. In the absence of my wonderful friend Jenny, who is indisposed and couldn't be here today to do our normal questions, she will be back next time, and I will look forward to connecting with her again. I hope these tips have been useful for you in Mental Health Awareness Week. And even if you can just take one of those tips and implement it in your life, I really hope that you might be able to reduce the level of anxiety that you feel. And likewise, spread those tips. They're all very simple. They're all very widely known tips. This isn't something that Rachel Hayth thought up. These are all very well-known concepts. So if you can share those with someone, if you can get those conversations going around mental health and mental fitness in a positive way, then that can only be a good thing for yourself and for those around you. So we'll be back same time, same place in 2 weeks' time for your next live episode of The Renny Show. In the meantime, take good care of yourselves, and I hope that you have a really good fortnight. Take care. Bye.